So CNN has a pundit or contributor guy that works for them. His name is Chris Cillizza. Now, this is a guy I've known about for many years. I used to run my own blog before a few years ago. I think it was like 4 or 5 years ago or something. I remember I wrote an article about him and how he's like shilling for the establishment. So this guy has been around. He's been doing it for the Washington Post, and now he's at CNN. So he's been doing it all over the place. He used to work for MSNBC. He used to be a contributor for MSNBC when he was writing for Washington Post. Now he's at CNN, and he does this show called, what's it called? The Point on CNN. So he goes on there and just, puts out stupid commentary and shit. A lot of times he's gone after Bernie Sanders here, and it's exactly what he does here too. So this is nothing new. It's just another one of his stupid rants where and the show is so dumb. It's not a show, but it's like a series or whatever, where he goes and he tries to be all hip and cool and tries to relate to like young people and shit. It's really kind of cringeworthy. But let me not give too much away. Let me just play the video for you here, and then we'll talk about it on the other side.
Burned out? Not feeling the burn? Slow burn? I got thousands of these. Literally, I wrote them in a notebook. Something has happened to Bernie Sanders over the last few months in the 2020 presidential race. Or, more accurately, something has not happened. Sanders, the Vermont Democratic Socialist, is stuck in neutral, and that's a very bad place to be with the day when actual voters will cast actual votes getting closer and closer. So take an NBC Wall Street Journal poll that was released in mid-September. It showed Sanders at 14% in third place, but trailing both Elizabeth Warren and Joe Biden by double digits. And that's not great, but that isn't even the real problem for Sanders out of this poll. It's actually this. While Biden had gained 5 points from a similar poll in July, and Warren had gained 6, Sanders' support stayed right where it was, up only a single point from the summer. And that, unfortunately for Sanders, is far from the only poll that shows him stagnating. A look at a Real Clear Politics average of all of the polling conducted in the Democratic primary race to date confirms this Sanders stall. In the spring of 2019, Sanders was the clear second choice to Joe Biden. In fact, all the way through early June, Biden and Sanders were the only two candidates to consistently poll in double digits in the Real Clear Politics average. But since summer has ended, Sanders' political support has flatlined a bit. His average support has never gone above 17.5% and never gone lower than 14%. So here's how you understand this. Sanders, due to the loyalness of his most ardent supporters, has always had a pretty high floor in this race, probably right around 14%. But what's happened over these last few months is the emergence of what looks like a pretty low ceiling for Sanders' support in the 2020 race. Not a lot of give there. So, speaking of give, what gives? Why is Sanders where he is? Well, the short answer is that there are just a whole lot more options for voters in this election than there were in the 2016 Democratic primary race. As you'll remember, in that race, Sanders was the only alternative to Hillary Clinton. If you didn't like Clinton, and there were lots of Democrats in that camp, you were voting for Sanders, period. It was your only choice. But in 2020, there are 20 candidates still in the race. 20! Which means that if you don't like, say, Biden, who is currently the front runner, there are lots and lots and lots and lots and lots, I could go on, of other options not named Bernie Sanders that you can choose in the race. One option in particular, Elizabeth Warren, is another big reason that Sanders' support seems to have hit a bit of a wall. So Warren's candidacy looks a lot like Sanders' candidacy. Unapologetic liberalism in support of broad structural change in politics and society. Warren supports Sanders' Medicare for All proposal. Warren and Sanders are both prominent supporters of the Green New Deal. Warren and Sanders both want to tax the wealthy and corporations to pay for their various proposals. Well, the problem for Sanders is that Warren is surging on that message while he, well, isn't. In the Real Clear Politics polling average again, Warren is now clear of Sanders for second place, and the NBC Wall Street Journal poll put her at 25%. The highest she's been in any hypothetical national polling since the primary started. So what explains Warren's rise on what is, for all intents and purposes, Sanders' longtime message? Well, voters like new faces. Sanders ran already in 2016 and lots of Democratic voters flocked to him. But for many of those same voters, it may be a been there, done that situation. Warren is, in their minds, Bernie 2.0, the same proposals in a more voter-friendly and electable package. And that gets at the more fundamental problem here for Sanders. The people who love him exactly because he doesn't care about how he looks, perennially unkempt, or what he sounds like, very, very shouty. Those traits make him authentic and different to them. But those same Sandersian traits may be the thing that is keeping him from growing his support in the race in any meaningful and statistically significant way. So if you're a Democrat and you are relentlessly focused on nominating someone who can beat Donald Trump in November 2020, and all polling I've seen suggests that is the dominant motivation for a majority of Democratic voters, then Sanders' profile may keep you from jumping on board his campaign. And there's evidence outside the world of polling that Sanders' stall in the numbers is having an impact. In mid-September, he replaced his New Hampshire state director, which is never a great sign with the primary now set for mid-February. And around that same time, he also lost the endorsement of the Working Families Party to Warren. It's important to note, Working Families endorsed Sanders in 2016. Now, take a breath. That was very cleansing. It's better to have these struggles in the fall of an off year rather than the middle of a primary season in late winter and early spring of next year. Because of the loyalty of Sanders' core backers, it is hard to imagine him slipping from relevance totally anytime real soon. But his struggle to attract support beyond that hardcore core is real and responsible for the current Sanders stagnation. And that is the point. We make New Point episodes every Tuesday and Thursday. Check them all out.
Okay, so that was the most delusional analysis I've ever heard. And honestly, it's not surprising if you're a Bernie Sanders supporter. You know exactly what to expect from these kind of people. They're gonna say these same kind of talking points, the same kind of shit. So we're gonna go point by point, analyzing The Point, which is the name of his stupid show, and kind of break down exactly what he said and debunk all his bullshit. But first, before we get into that, I just wanted to address these, how he keeps addressing poll after poll, the average poll of this, the average poll of that. So anybody can cherry pick polls. I can cherry pick polls. You can cherry pick polls. You can find any kind of poll that shows somebody either looking favorable or you can show them looking unfavorable. So let's do that. So let's cherry pick our own polls that show Bernie Sanders looking favorable, since he chose to cherry pick polls that makes him look unfavorable. So let's put this tweet up. This is a tweet from John Nichols, who's on Twitter, Nichols Uprising, and he's a pretty good progressive writer. He's been around for a while. I think he actually knows Bernie Sanders pretty well and has known him for a long time. He tweeted this out, so he says, latest California poll from Emerson, Bernie Sanders tied first. Latest New Hampshire poll, Boston Herald, Bernie Sanders in first. Newest Iowa poll, CBS, Bernie Sanders 3% behind Biden. Latest Nevada poll, CBS, Bernie Sanders in first. Latest South Carolina poll, CBS, Bernie Sanders in second. See? So that's 5 polls, and these are all from Real Clear Politics. I'm going to post the tweet for you guys. You can go check out the tweet that John Nichols posted, and then you can kind of go through it with a fine-tooth comb if you want to. But that's, if you want to look at polls, these are polls. Obviously, Chris Cillizza is ignoring all these polls that show specific how Bernie Sanders is doing in specific states, which, by the way, is very, very important when you focus on state by state. If you focus on like the national polling, which I think Chris Cillizza focused on, that doesn't really say much about the kind of the larger landscape of what people think about politicians. Because you can do anything and say, oh well, I like this politician, and then and then the people like a certain politician in a bigger state, whereas they might not like that politician so much in Iowa or New Hampshire or wherever, So you can easily just go to like New York and everybody say, yeah, I totally love Elizabeth Warren, or I totally love Joe Biden. Or you can go to California, yeah, I totally love Elizabeth Warren, love Joe Biden. So you can do that stuff easily. My point is that you can find polls that show favorably for Bernie Sanders, and this is it. So Cillizza's game is bullshit, and he knows he's just trying to find specific polling that makes Bernie look bad. But that's not the end of it here. So we're going to go point by point by and kind of analyze and pick apart what he's saying here. So people need to stop repeating this talking point about how there is so many other candidates to vote for. That's honestly, it's such a childish mentality to use, because what it does, it doesn't focus on the actual substance of what's going on. It just focuses on, oh well, there's so many other candidates out there. There's so many other choices. So to get into more detail, the reason why this is a problem is because while there are many other candidates running in the race compared to 2016, which was only like 4 or 5, right? And then obviously ended up being just between Bernie and Hillary. So it wasn't just Bernie and Hillary from the start. Compared to 2016, though, a lot of them are not pushing the same message as Bernie Sanders, or even Elizabeth Warren, to be fair. So to pretend like, oh yeah, anybody can go and pick anybody else except Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, and that totally is not good for Bernie Sanders. Apparently it's good for Elizabeth Warren, I guess. Or it's good for Joe Biden, I guess, too. Even though there's a ton of centrists that are running, and a lot of them, and there's a bunch of fake progressives who are also running, so Kamala Harris is one of them. Beto O'Rourke is another one. Pete Buttigieg is another one. These are all fake progressives out there that are running, that are pretending to, Kamala Harris is, did I mention Kamala Harris? Kamala Harris is another one. These are all fake progressives that are running, that think they're progressive, but they're just trying to leech and grift off of the progressive message to then get the votes and then ultimately do nothing for progressives and what they're demanding, of these candidates. Another thing is, a lot of them are part of the Democratic establishment, and a lot of them push ideas that voters have already heard but are not inspired by. So Joe Biden does this all the time. Joe Biden, Amy Klobuchar, Cory Booker, people like this are always pushing this establishment narrative, and that's largely, I'm not saying like in every single talking point. I mean, a lot of talking points they will, again, like I said, grift off the progressive label and progressive message at least. But a lot of the times, yeah, they're pushing centrist ideas, and this just milquetoast centrist ideas that nobody really is inspired by or really cares about, or because we've already heard it. So we're not into that kind of shit anymore. And so in this populist age, voters want to hear newer ideas. And that's specifically those that cater to people's real world problems, not cliches and platitudes. And that's something that centrists, they push a lot. Centrists like Biden, to some extent Beto O'Rourke, and I would say to some extent even Elizabeth Warren does, and then all the other, Klobuchar and even Pete Buttigieg. So yeah, I mean, a lot of these people are just a mix of spouting the progressive talking points, obviously, which they don't believe in, but they spout those talking points and then just mix in a little bit of centrism and then call themselves progressive, which is bullshit. And also most of the lower tier candidates have either dropped out or are beginning to fall in the polls because they aren't making any noise in the primary, and people just start to forget about them. So, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Joe Biden, this is no particular order, but those people seem to be the main ones standing out of the pack. Pete Buttigieg is still kind of hanging on. Kamala Harris somewhat still hanging on. And the rest of them, Andrew Yang. Yeah, Andrew Yang is still kind of hanging on himself too. But there's a lot of these people they're not in it anymore. And it's just those specific candidates that are in it more than the other ones. So, that's good news for Bernie Sanders. So talking about how there's 20 other options doesn't necessarily mean that they're all going to be, taking votes away from Bernie Sanders or necessarily taking votes from Elizabeth Warren. You never know. Maybe they're going to do it from one candidate or another candidate, or Joe Biden, whatever. So it doesn't just go one way. And, pretending as if this is a problem for Bernie Sanders is ridiculous. So the next thing I want to point out is that no, Elizabeth Warren's candidacy is not similar to Bernie Sanders. Now, a lot of people hear this and what? How could you say that? She's just like Bernie Sanders. She's a progressive. She believes in cracking down on the big banks. She believes in, the Green New Deal, and she believes in blah, blah. It's all the same shit that what's his name said, that Chris Cillizza said here. So the reality of that is Warren supports liberalism. aka market capitalism. She's a capitalist to her bones, as she said. That's a quote that's been pointed out many times, as she said it in multiple town halls, and I don't know if she said it in any of the debates, but she said it multiple times, and people have picked up on it. And so she believes in market capitalism, whereas Bernie Sanders supports a social democratic system, so a Scandinavian style system, so something that you have in Denmark, Norway, Iceland, Sweden. It's kind of like it's not post-capitalist, but it's definitely a system that. It's a system that puts heavy regulations on capitalism and doesn't allow the income gap to be obviously as wide as it is right now. Now, would Elizabeth Warren try and kind of try and change that system too? Yeah, but you can't do that with the form of capitalism that she believes in when it involves markets. And when you involve markets, then you're involving too much of the bigger corporations taking part in this kind of system, and you can't have that. You have to have a system where the market has a hell of a lot more competition. It has a hell of a lot more people getting involved. Now that's the social democratic system. You want to get into socialism and obviously communism and all that stuff, then you just get rid of markets, you get rid of capitalism. That's totally post-capitalist. That's not something Bernie Sanders is advocating for. Now, whether that's something that he is going to gravitate towards, or he's going to try and make the country into at some point, we don't know. But at this point right now, he believes in a Scandinavian style system. And for a lot of his supporters and a lot of people out there who are more leftist, they don't believe in a Scandinavian style system. They believe in a system that's more farther to the left. But that's a conversation for another day. Warren does not support full implementation of Medicare for All. As she's talked about different paths, quote, different paths. And she said that in a lot of past town halls. I've seen it in at least 2 town halls that she's done. Now, she hasn't done that so much in the debates. The debates, she's being a lot more careful and dancing around specific type of specific type of talking points, and trying not to trying to cater to, I guess, any certain side or anything. And she doesn't want to, I guess, get herself stuck in some sort of some sort of soundbite where she's going to be exposed as an opportunist, which honestly has pretty much already happened, but she's trying to avoid that as much as possible. And then, so Chris Cillizza says that Elizabeth Warren believes in a Green New Deal. Now, the biggest and best form of the Green New Deal, if some of you guys don't know, comes from the Green Party. It comes from the Green Party, which Jill Stein supported and pushed for. I'm sure Ralph Nader pushed for it back in his day when he was running for the Green Party. So the Green Party, the Green New Deal is something that was created and endorsed and put out there by the Green Party. That's something that probably also the Democratic Socialists of America support and other leftist groups. But the Green Party is the one that implemented it into their platform to begin with. And now the Democratic Party is, leeching and grifting off of that and pretending as if they supported, when in reality, even AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who first started talking about this, even she doesn't believe apparently in the full style of the Green New Deal as the Green Party does. So she's kind of leeching and grifting off that policy as well. But the problem with Warren is that part of her Green New Deal policy wants to involve the military, where she tries to get the Pentagon to take part in efforts to prevent climate change. So she wants to get them involved where they are, the military, emits so many fossil fuels and blah, blah, blah. And, and that's true. But what she's doing is she is trying to give an opportunity for the military industrial complex to involve themselves in this Green New Deal and this whole kind of this climate change issue, when in reality it's just a way for her to show that she is going to become beholden to the military industrial complex. Also, Warren doesn't believe in canceling all student loan debt and has no plan on canceling medical debt. So when it comes to situations specifically focusing on debt, Elizabeth Warren does not focus on that. She is not somebody that goes out there and pushes for those things to its fullest extent. So to the extent that Bernie Sanders does it, she's not even close. So while Bernie Sanders wants to advocate for wants to advocate for a $1.6 trillion of canceling student loan debt. I think Elizabeth Warren's plan is, I believe, 600 million or something. I'm sorry, 600 billion, I think, something along those lines. And she hasn't given a plan for medical debt either, like I said. So that's a big issue. While Warren wants to tax the wealthy and big corporations more, her coziness with CEOs of financial institutions, as well as wanting to take corporate PAC money in the general, raises huge concerns. So this is something I have brought up many times. I've shown you guys the 2 interviews. In fact, I showed it to you last podcast about where she did interviews with Cenk Uygur of TYT and with Chris Hayes of MSNBC's All In, hosts the show on MSNBC called All In. And she said the same thing from the same day. In fact, she did interviews on the same day or around the same time, for sure. To be fair, I'm not sure if they were on the same day, but they were definitely within that same kind of time frame, and she said the same exact thing, where she says she does not believe in unilateral disarmament when it comes to taking money, corporate PAC money. So in this case, she plans on taking it in the general election because she says, we got to defeat Donald Trump, blah, blah, blah. So she says all that shit. But then in the primary, she won't take it because she knows it's going to piss off progressives. So it's a very opportunistic move on Elizabeth Warren's part, and that's not going well. That's not going well with progressives. So also I wanted to get into how, Chris Cillizza says, Bernie yells a lot, and that's something that only his supporters like, but it might not help his standing within the ladder, when we go later into the primary. I mean, I don't even know what the hell he's basing that on. It just makes no sense. It's just based on a bunch of, chuckleheads on Twitter and social media saying, he yells too much. It's bullshit. He's just making it up. And it's based on no polling numbers. It's based on no studies, no, questions, asking questions of anybody. It's just completely fabricated bullshit media, mainstream media narrative. And so so that his whole style of talking a lot, really angry and loud and stuff, has nothing to do with anything, and has nothing to do with why people would or wouldn't vote for him. At least not on a macro scale. If you want to ask a couple people here and there, yeah, maybe they'll say that. Maybe if they're Hillary supporters or Elizabeth Warren supporters, yeah, they'll say that. But that's not something that independent voters out there, in the middle of the country in Iowa or Illinois or Missouri are going to say that, or Kentucky or Alabama. They don't care about that shit. They just want somebody that's going to do things that they, do the things that they demand and stand up for them, not for the elites and the corporate class. So voters are begging for politicians who are passionate and angry about injustices happening in the United States and all over the world. So Bernie Sanders is going out there and he's angry because everybody else is angry. I've said this before on the show. Everybody else in this country is extremely angry about all the injustices that is going on in this world. They're yelling and screaming about it, and they're never heard. And Bernie Sanders is angry about the same exact shit that regular people have been yelling about for decades. But they're never heard. And because the corporate media has been drowning them out and ignoring their pleas. And that's why nobody, honestly, the trust of the corporate media and just mainstream media in general is so fucking low. It's just, it's down there with, probably being just as bad as Congress, which is somewhere in this high single digits or somewhere in the middle teens or something. The Congress, mainstream media, these people, they are not taken seriously. And that is not the reason for you shouldn't be trusting Bernie Sanders, because Bernie Sanders is actually standing up against all the things that Congress and the Senate stand up for, which is corporate money, endless wars and stuff, and not helping regular people. Bernie Sanders is the only one doing that. The rest of them idiots are not doing that kind of shit. They don't care about that stuff because it does not benefit their donors. Bernie Sanders is doing that, they're not. So people need to realize that. Chris Cillizza obviously doesn't know that or doesn't give a shit. Chris Cillizza says in a segment, I've seen based on every poll I've seen, it shows that the Democrats are, the main focus is to beat Donald Trump. Okay, so if Democrats are so focused on beating Donald Trump in 2020, Bernie Sanders is the choice, just like he was in 2016. So what do I mean by that? Every single poll that has ever been taken since 2016 shows that Bernie Sanders beats Donald Trump straight up in a one-on-one battle. Check every single head-to-head poll. Every single one. Every single one of them shows that Bernie Sanders beats him. You can quote me on that. And that is something that is completely ignored by the media. They ignore that shit like crazy. It is unbelievable. It is absolute journalistic malpractice, the fact that they refuse to acknowledge the simple fact. But it's not, again, as usual with many of the tactics of the mainstream media and corporate media, it's not surprising. Because this is what they do, and they want to ignore reality. They don't want to show you what's actually going on. They want to give you their narrative, and they want to manufacture consent, so they make you believe things that aren't actually true. And then if you ask the anti-Bernie Democratic loyalists out there, they claim that, well, because Bernie hasn't been vetted by the Republican Party. I mean, come on, that's just a joke. Hasn't been vetted by the Republican Party, and once they attack him, he won't be as popular anymore. I mean, that is such ridiculous bullshit. Because think about it. What is the attack that the Republicans are going to use against Bernie Sanders? Oh, you're a communist. Oh, you're a socialist. Oh, you want to take away our health care. Oh, you want to create death penalties. The same fucking shit they said about Barack Obama, that honestly a lot of people in the media, they honestly just said, yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. That's totally what he is. Okay, so fine. Go and say that, go watch Donald Trump in a rally. Go say, oh yeah, Bernie Sanders, that's socialist, that communist, that this, that, and that. He's such a terrible guy because he wants to give you health care and raise your minimum wage, and he wants to cancel your student loan debt. Yeah, what a terrible fucking guy. What a prick that Bernie Sanders guy is, because he wants to do all these wonderful things that people support. And by the way, all those policies, all those things that Bernie Sanders wants to do are all extremely popular among regular people. So don't fucking tell me about how Bernie Sanders, has not been vetted by the Republican Party. Everything that they're going to use against him is just propaganda. It's bullshit. It's nothing that's going to be actually sticking in the minds of people that are going to, that are suffering, unable to pay their medical, their medical expenses, not able to pay off their student loans. They're working, 3-4 jobs just to survive. They can't keep the lights on because they're not getting high enough of a wage. They're getting screwed over by their insurance companies, let alone their employers, who probably make them pay thousands of dollars on co-pays and deductibles and premiums and stuff. It's all kinds of fucking problems that people have. They do not give a shit about these stupid labels that scare the hell out of them. It might have worked back in the day, but Bernie Sanders knows how to respond to that because he knows how to respond with substance. Whereas if you ask any other Democrat out there who gets called a socialist or communist, they're like, I don't know, that's not going to work because Donald Trump is scared of Democrats, or some bullshit platitudes are going to throw out. Where if you ask Bernie Sanders, he's like, yeah, you know what? I do care about the American people. I do care about taking away their medical debt. I do care about getting them Medicare for all so that they can have a better quality of life. I do believe in giving them higher wages. I do believe in favor of fighting for unions. I do believe in favor of raising the minimum wage, giving them a living wage. I do believe in ending the wars. Has Donald Trump done any of these things? No. He wants to keep America great. That's Donald Trump's slogan. He wants to keep America great. Keep America great from what? You haven't done anything. So what the hell are you talking about? And then another thing is, so according to polling, which the media, like I said, ignores, all of his policies are extremely popular. And also, don't forget, another important thing is that based on the massive crowds that Bernie Sanders gets, people are more than enthusiastic for his candidacy. So if you look at the crowds for any other candidate, put aside maybe Elizabeth Warren. Maybe she has almost as much enthusiasm, not as much as Bernie, but she has somewhere close to Bernie Sanders' enthusiasm. Other than Elizabeth Warren, Joe Biden doesn't have any enthusiasm from his supporters. Kamala Harris doesn't have as much as far as the number of supporters that are backing her. Amy Klobuchar, Cory Booker, Beto O'Rourke, Pete Buttigieg. Pete Buttigieg just has the support of a bunch of celebrity donors. That's the only people that care about him. So compare the actual excitement for a candidacy that Bernie Sanders has compared to every single other candidate. Bernie Sanders has the most excitement from his candidacy because he stands up for real issues. Elizabeth Warren only has the support of specific type of specifically from like progressive voters, I guess, which you can consider somewhat progressive voters, not really like real progressives and leftists. But she only has the support of those people because she's grifting off of Bernie Sanders' policies. And this is, again, something that the media will not report on because they're stupid and or they just don't give a shit, and they just want to keep talking about how Elizabeth Warren is so wonderful and so, better than Bernie Sanders and more electable than Bernie Sanders. Fucking ridiculous. And also another thing, don't forget that we covered on my last podcast, Donald Trump has admitted to his closest confidants and aides that he is scared to take on the socialist ideology. And Bernie Sanders is the only one offering anything close to this in its entirety of his platform, for his platform. So Bernie Sanders is an advocate for socialist type policies. And whether it's democratic socialists or just socialists, he advocates for them. So you want to go call him a socialist? That's not going to do anything for you. That's not going to do shit. All you're going to do is just be pissing in the wind. So like I said before, you go and call a Democrat, a member of the Democratic Party, like the typical Democrats and centrists and grifting faux progressives out there. You call them socialists and communists. They're gonna fumble all over their words. They're not gonna know how to respond because they don't actually believe in those things. So when you call them a socialist, they just have to defend themselves. Whereas if you call Bernie Sanders that, he's an actual socialist or at least social democrat. He's gonna go out there and say, yeah, I do believe in those things. Yeah, those things are great. They have worked. Social Security has worked. The fire department works. The police department works. The military is socialist, although the military obviously doesn't work very well. But the military is socialist. All these different things are socialist. Medicare has worked. Now that's why obviously Bernie Sanders wants to do Medicare for all, but Medicare has worked. Social Security work, all these different things that are social programs, which are socialist, those programs have all worked. So don't tell me about how, just because somebody is a socialist, that, you can go out there and call them a socialist and it's going to work, when they're an actual socialist. It's not going to work because in reality, that person is proud to stand up for those policies and for those, ideas, and they're not scared to shy away from them, whereas your typical Democratic loyalist and establishment Democrat isn't going to know what to say. And so Bernie Sanders' stance in the polls are relevant to his campaign developments and endorsements. So we don't know the details of what happened, with why Bernie Sanders changed his New Hampshire state director. But that person was reportedly moved to another state. And there are no details aside from that. So other than a bunch of reporting coming from outlets like Politico and stuff, yeah, people, New Hampshire, the New Hampshire state director for Bernie Sanders, he was changed. Okay, it's not the end of the world. Chris Cillizza wants to pretend as if like this revolving door shit is gonna, work. They do the same stuff with presidents all the time. They've been doing it with Donald Trump. Oh, the revolving door, the turnover rate of his cabinet is so bad. Like nobody gives a fuck about that, man. But the establishment always thinks it's a show of instability within this person's campaign, or in Trump's case, his White House or his cabinet. It's so fucking ridiculous what these people focus on. So the endorsement of Warren over Sanders by the Working Families Party was significant, but they also didn't disclose specific vote totals, and there were also superdelegates that were involved in the vote. So I mentioned that in the last segment, and that's what happened. So I don't think. The only reason people are making a big deal out of the Working Families Party endorsement is because of the fact that there was a lot of shady stuff going on, and it's much different from how it was operating before, because the vote totals were the details of the vote were disclosed before. This time they weren't. Super delegates were allowed to vote. This time. This time, who knows if I don't think they were allowed to vote last time, because they would have probably not voted for Bernie Sanders. They would have probably just decided not to endorse him, and and that's a big deal. And then, like I said, Elizabeth Warren's daughter apparently lobbied to get them to vote for Elizabeth Warren too, so to support her mom. So that's a big deal too. So ultimately, that begs the question: what happened between 2016 and now that made the Working Families Party to want to choose Elizabeth Warren over Bernie Sanders? Because his policies haven't changed, and they are much more progressive than hers. So that doesn't make any sense. And like I said in the last time I read in the last segment, they changed their leadership. They added new leadership to the people there, and obviously there was some sort of changes that happened where people are just more pro Elizabeth Warren for honestly no reason. And when you have people on there who's, especially members of the leadership, whose votes count for more, and they don't want to disclose how those votes went, it's some shady stuff going on there. So we're, progressives and leftists are right to be very, very critical and very kind of wondering about what's going on there, what funny business is going on there. So finally, I just wanted to finish off this segment. I wanted to get to the comments. So the dislike ratio, the like to dislike ratio of this video that Chris Cillizza posted, or CNN posted, of this Chris Cillizza video is so fucking terrible. The last time I checked, it was something like 660 something upvotes and like 12,000 downvotes. I think it's probably even more. It's probably 13 or 14,000 now, and maybe even more than that. Who knows? But it's so ridiculous. So I just wanted to read some of the comments one of the top comments that I read here. The first person says, the like to dislike ratio on this video is so satisfying. Nice propaganda, makes me want to support Sanders even more. The reason why Chris was hired was to connect to young people. What a horrible job he has done. No one takes this guy seriously, and CNN is just plain stupid if they think this guy resonates with real people. Feel the burn in the dislikes, you out-of-touch corporate hack con artist. Hey Chris, how much do they pay you to smear and bring down Bernie? They say he's stuck in neutral as he is breaking records with individual donors. Yeah, Bernie Sanders just reached 1 million individual donors, by the way. That's a big story. And then he says, what a pathetic attempt to distract from Bernie's momentum. Don't worry, Chris, when your current employer terminates you under Bernie's plan, you will still have health coverage. No, I'm sure CNN is going to keep him just for the reasons that alone, but that is a funny remark. Not only a trash propaganda piece, Chris's attempt to be funny/cute are so cringy. Yeah. He just hit 1 million individual donors. Chris is a slimy hack, undeserving of his job. You forgot to mention the fact that Bernie beats Trump in all the polls. Yes. Thank you, CNN, for emboldening us even more. Your propaganda won't do any good. Bernie 2020, hashtag Bernie 2020. And the final one says, seriously, is CNN even trying anymore? Pretty much the only thing Trump gets right is how terrible this network is. Judging from the number of dislikes you have, you might be feeling the burn all too well. That is so fucking true. So listen, man, from all the commentary that I gave you, the comment section does, I think, the most justice, because these people are saying exactly what all the rest of us are thinking, and you just get to say it in like short, one or two sentences essentially. And these people nailed it, and I know there's a lot more, comments that are just as funny as those. But that gives you a snapshot of how ridiculous of a joke CNN is, and how even more ridiculous Chris Cillizza is. That guy is just a total goofball, and he obviously doesn't know how to do his job right, or he's just a monumental moron, and he loves to do his job like this, and he's just shitty at it. That's all it pretty much boils down to.